Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So, we are currently looking in the Indian economy. So, in the last lecture, we did look about the basics of economy. In this lecture, we will be looking about the basics of microeconomics. So, you might ask me, microeconomics is not so important with respect to UPSC, but why still a lecture on that? Of course, it might not look relevant, but there have been some times in the recent past where one or two questions are expected from the prelims perspective, and this base will help in also learning macroeconomics as well. So, it's quite a simple lecture, and you will all love it. So, let's get into the lecture. So, what is microeconomics? Microeconomics is a branch of study in social science which studies the implications of incentives and decisions, and more specifically it shows how it affects the utilization and distribution of resources at an individual level. Microeconomics here actually it studies the decision of decisions of individuals, how individuals contribute towards the economy, how individuals work towards the economy. That's all we can look. It also looks into firms, like in the part of allocation of their resources. These are all looked into by microeconomics, and it also deals with prices and prices and productions in one market, and interaction between different markets, but leaves the study of economy wide aggregates. I mean, the study of how the entire markets work all together to macroeconomics. So let's move on to the law of demand. See, for economy to survive, the law of demand and supply is very important. The law of demand states that other factors remaining constant, price and quantity demanded of any good or service are inversely related to each other. And in other words, we can say that when the price of the product increases, the demand of the product will fall, and the vice versa. So, here the graph will look like this. So, this will be the price and the demand. So, when the price of the product is high, so eventually the demand will be low. At the same time, when the price of the product is low, the demand is going to be high. So it works on this axis. Here we can see that when the price of the product is low, here the demand is high. When the price of the product is high, the demand is very low. So this shows that the more the product price increases, the demand gets reduced. Example, when purchasing an automobile, for example, if the price decreases, people are more likely to purchase new automobiles. But if the price increases, the people will start shifting to public transports as well, or by bicycle for their transport. This is an example. You can look into the law of demand. Next one is law of supply. The law of supply states that other things being equal, as the price of good or service increases, the quantity supplied of the good or service also increases. If the price increases, the quantity also increases. That is the supply curve. Let's look into the graph here. This is quantity. This is the price. See, what happens is when the price increases, the quantity increases. When the price still increases, the quantity again increases. So graph looks something like this. This is the supply curve. See, why they do this is like, example, if 1 kg of onion is coming at around 70 or 80 rupees, let's say 80 rupees, and all of a sudden it increases to 100 rupees due to the demand or supply. So farmers, what they will do is, they will feel insensitivized to grow more onions to increase the supply and earn more profit. Similar actually here, if the quantity supplied is reduced, the price also reduces. That is something law of supply brings in. Now let's look into the elasticity of demand and supply and the price elasticity of demand. See, elasticity of the demand measures how quantity demanded responds to the price changes. Elastic demand is when the change in demand is large, when there is also change in price. Inelastic demand is when the change in demand is small, but there is also change in price. Here, elasticity of supply indicates the responsiveness of the quantity supplied. Elasticity indicates the quantity supplied, how quantities are supplied to the price changes. That's what decide the elasticity of demand and supply. Like, if the quantity supplied is high, the demand might fall. But if the demand is high and quantity also might be high, supply might also be high, but still, if it's too highly supplied, the demand might fall. So that's what the elasticity of demand says about. Price elasticity of demand. See, it is the ratio of percentage change in quantity demanded of a product to percentage change in price. So, like, let's look into with an example to get into this topic. Let's say burgers. See, it has high elasticity. High elasticity in the sense, because there are lot of alternatives for that, for hamburgers, like pizza, salads, hot dogs. So these are all available as alternatives to burger. Okay. But such goods such as gasolines or oil have low elasticity, because there is not much of alternatives for gas or oil, and they are very much in need for to necessary of our power consumption, transportation, etc. So if there are more alternatives, the elasticity is high. If there is less or no alternatives, the elasticity of demand is very very low. So that must be understood to understand this topic. So let's go into the different types of goods. Substitute goods. Goods which can be used in place of another for satisfaction of specific want. Let's say here Google Chrome is a browser. If we do not want, we can use it. We can even use Firefox as a substitute for time being. That's a substitute good. Complementary goods are goods which are used together to satisfy a specific want. Pencils and erasers. If you make mistakes, you might need erasers. So they are used together to satisfy a specific want. Pencils and erasers. Giffen goods. It's a low income, non-luxury product that defies standard economic and consumer demand theory, where the demand rises when price falls and falls when prices fall. We can call bread is an example. Demand rises when prices rise and falls when prices also falls. Rice is an example of given goods. Veblen goods. The price for these goods increase as the demand increases and are typically considered as high quality goods, which are known as exclusive and as an auto status symbol. Like designer jewels, they are known for their high status symbols. So as the demand for that designer jewels increase, the price for those goods also increase. Normal goods. Normal goods are those goods for which the demand rises as the consumer income rises. We can say iPhone. These goods actually, when the consumer income rises, the demand also increases because he wanted to buy an iPhone. That's normal good. Now, what's inferior good? It's a good whose demand decreases when consumer income rises. Cycle is an example. Cloth, like, is an income cycle in the sense when consumer income rises, he might buy an automobile, he might buy a bike for travel. So eventually, the demand decreases because the consumer income has rise. Similarly, cloth, he might go for better fabric as his income has increased. So it's an inferior good again. So let's look into a PYQ here. Considering the following statements, if other things remaining unchanged, market demand for the good might increase. If price of its substitute increases, price of its complement increases, the good is an inferior good and the income of the consumers increase and its prices fall. Which of the above statements are correct? So take a moment to get along with the question and try to answer. Meanwhile, we'll be looking into the question as well. So let's look actually. See, first thing you have to read the statement. Other things remaining unchanged, market demand for good might increase if the price of its substitute increases. See, substitute here in the sense, as I told, it's like Chrome, Firefox, yes. They might compete with each other and to deliver a better product, in that case the price of substitute might increase. So we can take this point as yes, the price of its complement increase. Actually, here in this case, the demand for the market demand for good might decrease for the original product, might decrease if original good, if the complement good price increases or the original product price increases, the complement good might the demand for it might get increased. Let's say if pencils get expensive or erasers get expensive, it might vice versa get low demand. People will start going for alternatives like pen or whatever it may be instead of going for pencils or erasers. The good is an inferior good and the income of the consumer increases. See, just because the income of the consumer increases, and if the good is an inferior good, the market demand will not be much into it. So this is the wrong thing, and its price falls. Yes, if the demand for a good might increase if the price falls. So eventually the option will be A. See, considering with respect to UPSC in prelims perspective, economic questions can no longer, we cannot say it is definitely found in that book or this book or where that word we cannot find anywhere in particular, considering with respect to economy. However, to know the concept, you can look into the NCRT, 12th NCRT, Introductory Macroeconomics, Chapter 2, which speaks about theory of consumer behavior, wherein you can try to get or analyze the concept here. So let's look into the next series, which is the theory of firms. Perfect competition. In perfectly competitive market, numerous firms produce identical goods such as fruit vendors, no barriers for entry or exit, produces and consume, possess perfect market knowledge. Yes, there are many fruit vendors in around our local area. Everyone is almost having the same fruit. So there is always a perfect competition between them. Monopolistic competition involves many producers using differentiation to distinguish from others. Like consumer awareness of product distinguishes or distinctions is very much essential to buy correct one or proper one. Next one is oligopoly. Few influential producers dominate the market, with duopoly meaning the minimum form. Actually, we can call phone manufacturers in particular for oligopoly. Like the producers have substantial knowledge about competitors here and can predict their responses to the strategy changes. They have high complex product differentiation, which while price influences is by great large producers. So it all matters here. Phone manufacturers are example for oligopoly. Monopoly. When single producer dominates the market, may arise due to ownership or government ownership. We can call atomic energy or is owned by only India. Only the government in India. So that's a monopoly in the market because it's a government ownership. It sets its own price or government regulation, and it's quite common in many sectors as well. Like China, they try to maintain monopoly in many aspects as well. Many producing products try to maintain monopoly because of the government control. So this is about the basics of microeconomics, guys. Hope you guys understood the topic and are quite clear of the concepts as well. Do watch the videos entirely, like, share and subscribe to the channels, and comment your doubts if you have any. We'll resume with the next lecture soon. Thank you.